libertarian left and right represented up in here in the House Biznatch. That's what be up right now, homies. Hells to the yeah. I'm about to be talking about my brother over here, Liberty Unleashed. Yo.
That's your introduction.
Well, you told me to use my radio voice. I just decided to put it on a different radio station.
Good evening, everybody. This is Brian from Liberty Unleashed. I can't even talk after
that. That's right. Liberty Unleashed, my fly brother. He knows what's up. Yep. Up in the Liberty hood.
That's
all right.
Good.
So we're going to be talking about some interesting topics today. Specifically, just kind of garnered right back around about censorship and how the mainstream media complex is still not happy with their lack of control over the narrative. And so Brian had sent me a link to a Twitter thread, and I haven't had a chance to completely nail down everything that's in that thread. But if what is in that thread is 100% on the up and up about Google releasing new guidelines about how, like basically what will happen is that indie media would just disappear from Google searches. And so there's a lot of implications. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's all about getting rid of independent media under the guise of saying that it's for our benefit. It's to stop the spread of misinformation and falsehoods out there, and therefore making it more safer of an internet for us.
Right. And the problem with it always comes back to the fact that it's, you ever notice that nobody's satisfied with just blocking. Like nobody wants to just block. Like if you don't like what somebody's saying, then just block them. Like, why do you have to insist that the entire internet is catered to your experience?
And yeah, I mean, the whole premise of freedom and freedom of speech. Now, obviously, it's Google, and what people are going to say, well, it's a private platform; they can do whatever they want. That's not the point. The old Google, the Google that we grew up with, was just a place for you to go to get the stuff you were looking for, searching for. It had nothing to do with trying to censor it, trying to manipulate it. And as they grew and got these capabilities with all the data mining and information, and I'm sure, of course, customer, complaints that go along with it when people don't get the narrative that they want to see, they complain. There's plenty of Karens out there. So, it's changed over time. And, now basically everybody's trying to control the narrative. It's frustrating because Google is a company in America that's supposed to be capitalism. They're supposed to be capitalist. Therefore, this seems as anti-American as it can be. It seems as much censorship as you can get. And that's where the frustration comes in. Now, of course, you and I are used to being shadow banned. We're used to having to, fight to get listeners and get people to support our show. So it's nothing new to us. But it looks like they're making it public and they're going all in, with it now at this point.
Right. And if this happens, like it kind of comes back to why I've done so many different videos on do you think for yourself? Do you also have like, he also is just like, do you realize why censorship is important? And, why is it a concern? Well, like if you haven't been given certain information, then you can't make decisions about what's going on in the world, and then if you're also given crap information and not any alternatives, then that's going to impact you too, and something that's just itching to come out of my head right now. I've got to say this, although it's only a mild segue. I won't go long into the topic, but it occurred to me that when you talk about the trans issue, they will always say that, well, social contagion is not real. Yet at the same time, they'll say, but we have to ban all of this speech because it might lead to people becoming fascists. We have to ban all this speech because it might lead to hate speech, might lead to people being violent. Like, well, if social contagion is not a thing, then why are you so worried about that?
Right. And I always hate the we're doing this for your benefit. I mean, of course, we've heard that from every despot in history. We have to do this to keep you safe, for your benefit, to make it better for you, to make it easier for you. You can't have rights, you can't have freedom because that's unsafe and that doesn't benefit you. The only way to make it safe for you is for us to take your voice away, to take your freedoms away, and then everybody out there will be safe. And again, I know people are going to come at us at some point and say Google's a private company, they can do whatever they want. And I get tired of hearing that. Wow, I know it's true. I think that's not the point of this at all. Um,
And the real thing about that, Brian, is that they were all about that until Elon Musk bought Twitter. Then all of a sudden they started panicking that maybe somebody might own Twitter that they didn't agree with. And all of a sudden they needed government intervention to prevent him from, allowing whatever he wanted on his private platform. But that's going to bring us to the second part of what we'll be talking about today is also that it looks like Twitter is going to bring back shadow bans, which unfortunately means the brief period of time on Twitter/X or whatever we're calling it now, where it might have been a viable free speech alternative, may be coming to a close again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to swallow for Elon to let Twitter do the shadow banning. But I've seen a lot of complaints. I was just going to bring that up, over at Twitter, where people keep saying that he broke it, and their complaint that he broke it is because now they have to hear that other side of the voice that they didn't like to hear before. When you were a progressive liberal on Twitter before Elon bought it, you didn't have to listen to anything else really. You just got to basically mouth off about MAGA Republicans and have nobody say anything back. Now there's plenty of people on there that are allowed to talk back, and everybody's like, "Well, Twitter's broken now. Elon broke it. It's not the same Twitter it used to be." And what they're basically saying is, I don't like free speech. I only wanted my voice to be heard and nobody else's.
Right, and that's the funny thing is that that's not even like a normal leftist position. I actually did a video about that, comparing AOC, who was happy, when Tucker Carlson was kicked off of Fox and was talking about how, she's like, good things can happen. He's very, very clearly inciting violence somehow, because they have say, of course, that just openly talking about bad things that the left does leads to immediately inciting violence somehow. But then the contrast is that Bernie Sanders, for example, did not support Trump's Twitter ban. Bernie Sanders does not support censorship in general. At least that's what he said in the time frame. I haven't looked at what he said more recently, but the point is that it's not like it was always some leftist position to want to censor. I think that some of these young people, I often say that censorship is not just a concept; it's like a mentality. It becomes a way to end the argument as quickly and as easily as possible, as that is how they see it, and that the people who say things that they don't like, you got to remember, because of the polarization of our current politics, you're not just disagreeing with me, you are an evil human being and should therefore, you shouldn't have any rights at all, especially if they can just label everyone fascists every 30 seconds. Then, you could say, well, okay, well, we don't want fascists talking. After all, we don't want fascism. I just got into an argument, ironically, once again on the trans issue, with somebody who tried to say that misgendering someone is fascism. So
Well,
if go ahead.
that's what we've got to these days. If I don't like your opinion, you're a racist, you're fascist, you're everything that I can label that would make people not want to listen to you or take you serious.
Right, and it makes it, I call it the shotgun blast of oppression, because sometimes they'll fire that off and you'll be like, "Wait, how is that even racist? Like, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with race." Like, you'll get called racist, sexist, like they'll just try to see what sticks. Like,
Right.
it's like they'll throw everything at you to see what sticks. Like, that's how you end up with somehow not being okay with people being fat is racist. Like, what? And I want to make it clear, I'm obese. I'm working on losing weight right now.
I
It's
mean,
not okay to be fat. Okay. It's unhealthy. But me thinking that someone's not attractive for being obese doesn't make me racist, and it has nothing to do with racism. But that's another example of how they'll just blast all of these labels at you, that I call sticky labels, the ones that the more you, protest that it's not you, the more you look guilty. That's why it reminds me so much of the witch hunts, because that's how witch hunts were, because the more you professed your innocence, the more guilty you look.
right.
It's yeah, it's a perfect, storm.
Yeah. Well, we throw you in the water, you drown and die, you were innocent. If you float, you're guilty.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, at
But
least your
yeah,
soul's
this
with
is
God if you drown, right? And the church gets to keep your stuff too. Don't forget about that.
well, of course. I mean, we can't have it any other way. But I don't know if we blame like you know how they have Gen X, Gen Z, all these different labels now for different age groups. I don't know if there's a blame on an age group or just society as it is modern day, but that's really where we're at. If we don't like what you're saying, it's redefining stuff is what I'm getting at. They're redefining what censorship is. See, to them, you're spreading fake news or you're talking alternative viewpoints. So we're not censoring you in terms of censorship like you believe it. We just saying you're fake news, so nobody wants to listen to you and we don't want to hear it. And that's how
And
they're
it's
going about it.
dangerous if we allow people to hear it too.
Right,
That
exactly. So they label you because you have a different opinion of them as fake news. And then now it's no longer censorship. It's just you're dangerous and nobody wants to hear it. So they're basically mis they're not even, I mean, I don't even know if they're redefining the word as they're just ignoring it as if it's like, okay, well, it's okay to censor when you don't like something,
well,
it's kind of like that.
and there is a lot of that redefining words. You guys can actually watch me post one of my favorite memes in live stream here. Here we go. Censoring social media to protect people from dangerous ideas in the name of public safety and national security. And it's a picture of Nazis burning books.
Right. I mean, we going through the whole COVID thing and Facebook, and it's amazing, particularly for you and I, at this since 2008, which now seems like forever ago. A lot of the stuff that we talked about back then was considered fake news. Now they didn't use that term. I guess we were just basically called crazy conspiracy theorists. They didn't say fake news, run around pointing and saying fake news. Back then, they just labeled you crazy conspiracy theorists, and that
Oh,
was
and they
it.
still do that too. They still do that a lot.
Yeah, but it doesn't hold as much. It doesn't affect. People aren't like, oh, can't talk to him. He's a crazy conspiracy theorist. Um, like they used to. So it doesn't have the same weight to it as it used to, I think. But the point I was trying to make is that um, we were right. I mean, with most of the stuff that we talked about, uh, we were right. And to be labeled that, and then come out that we were right is, I mean, nobody's out there pointing saying, see, we were wrong, they were right. And that's the same thing through Facebook and all their fact checkers. Everybody used it as a weapon. You posted something somebody didn't like, particularly, when you're a libertarian, you can post a lot of stuff that people don't like, it seems. And then all of a sudden, these fact checkers come on and try to make your post look like it was the worst post in the world. And everybody's sending screenshots of the fact checker below as if you can't see it. Right. And,
Mhm.
a perfect example would be the mask scenario during COVID. Obviously there was a whole group of people, including me, who was like, there's no way that these masks and this walk down one aisle of the grocery store one way while somebody else walks down the other way is effective. Putting a little piece of plexiglass up at the cash register is effective. And yet you got fact checked the hell out of. And now all of a sudden, it turns out we were right. All these studies come out and basically we were right. None of that did any good or had any it didn't control COVID. It didn't make the spread more or less in any way. And they're still running around trying to fact check people, trying to basically do the same thing. Like, if we don't like your narrative, we have to silence you.
So, friend of the show, Logical Checkmate. And if you guys haven't checked out Logical Checkmate, he is one of the featured channels on my YouTube. You guys can check him out. He gives a Czech Republic take on a lot of things. We did a lot of videos together during the Rittenhouse stuff. He points out, cheers. Google does censorship with fact checks. Try searching George Floyd fentanyl. Only results you will get are fact checks saying it's false and that he had 3 times lethal dosage. Technically accurate. According to Logical Checkmate, he had 30 times the lethal dosage. So that's just an example of, like, because we talk about redefining words. It's real 1984. Those are the things that Orwell was warning about. Like, you don't even have to censor everything if you can just simply control the meanings of things and change them whenever you want. Just like they're trying to change the definition of the word racism to somehow be prejudice plus power, and that way, then certain people would be permitted to behave like racists and other people would not. That's really the only effect that it's ever had. But they just try to lie new definitions of terms into being all the time. Like that's how, for example, the person I was talking about earlier that I was arguing with about fascism and the trans issue was just saying, that they literally said that fascism is thriving more than ever before. Like, and they believe that. And I'm like, Well, that's interesting. I don't remember any tanks rolling down my street. I'm not, like there's no Gestapo breaking down the doors yet.
Kill
You know, but if they do show up, it's not going to be at the behest of people who disagree with them. It's going to be them. It's going to be, it's going to be anybody who's like, well, you misgendered someone, so now you're going to jail. They apparently just passed a law to that effect in Michigan recently. Go ahead. I can hear you needing to talk.
Oh no, I'm just kind of took in some air there, but
Okay.
I didn't need my my breath to interrupt you there. But
No, no problem.
it's
Yep.
interesting because to make your point, my wife was talking. This was during the school year, and I bring that up because one of the kids in the house made a comment, and the conversation we were having was we don't think that trans people should be able to use the opposite sex bathroom. So basically, you have to use a bathroom you were biologically born as, was our opinion. And one of the kids in our house was like, "Well, you're transphobic." And that's, we knew they got it
Oh
from
my
school, and
god.
that, we just kind of looked at him and was like, do you even know what that word means? Do you know what you're saying? But that makes your
Wow.
point. Like, you have an opinion that they don't agree with or understand, and you're labeled. You're just quickly labeled like that. It's like you feel that they should use a bathroom that they were biologically born as. Well, then you're transphobic. You know, that's
Right.
that's the era
And
we live in.
it's interesting then because of course, don't forget, our children are not being indoctrinated. That's a right-wing conspiracy theory you're participating in there, Brian. By saying that out loud. And then if it did happen in your own house, like I've been saying lately, that the trend generally is they'll say that's not actually happening and nobody supports that. It will then evolve into okay, well maybe some people support that, but it's still not actually happening. And then it evolves to, okay, it is happening and it should be happening. And if you don't like that it's happening, then you're an evil person. And that's basically how they handle the indoctrination of kids, critical race theory slash anti-racist grifting being thrown into schools. That's how they handle drag shows, in front of kids. That's how they handle the issue of kids in drag shows. It's all the same thing. It's like that's not actually happening. And okay, maybe it is happening, but it evolves in that, and then eventually you're kind of thinking to yourself, it's interesting. I think it was probably a week ago that you were telling me that that's not happening at all, and now that you're admitting that it's happening and you support it too, that's the weird way that they go about things, and that's when you start to understand that there's definitely an agenda to just try to like slowly groom society as a whole, to be more accepting of these ideas as they want to do it gradually, like the frog in the water. So let's get to this Twitter thread here, unless you had anything else.
Well, I mean, I think there is a level of live and let live, but that doesn't mean you can't have opinions like biological males should use biological male bathrooms. Just because I want you to live and let live doesn't mean I think, we shouldn't understand and respect the different sexes that are, the male and female as it goes. And interesting enough, before you bring this up, I don't know if you remember this, but a couple months ago, a guy had his home was a smart home, and all his devices responded to Amazon Alexa, so he could turn on his lights, dim the lights, turn on his radio throughout the house, turn it on and off his cameras, all the stuff that you can do with
Right.
Alexa and a smart home. And I guess he got a delivery, and he had one of those Ring doorbells, and he said something to the delivery driver, and the Amazon Alexa flagged whatever he said as racist, and they basically closed his account down for a couple hours. So he couldn't access anything in his house via his voice. He couldn't say turn on the lights. So he had no control. Basically, they basically shut his house down because that they thought he said something racist to the delivery driver. Now,
Yep.
his complaint was that he just wanted his house back and they shouldn't have done that without a thorough investigation. I was like, really? You wanted to them investigate it? They shouldn't even be listening to the point of being able to do that. Like, oh, you said something racist, so we're shutting you down. Like, he didn't even bring that up. I'm just sitting there reading the article going, this is crazy on both sides. Like, he's not concerned that they tracked and listened to that. He's just concerned that they didn't investigate it further to make sure it really wasn't said. That was his concern. I was like, oh my God, this is scary. The society we're getting into now.
Yeah, that's incredibly dystopian, and it's one of the reasons why I've never hooked any of those things up. Like, I thought about maybe doing it with Alexa or whatever, but like, one of the things that Edward Snowden pointed out was that he literally just rips the microphones out of his cell phones and then he plugs in headsets whenever he wants to talk on his cell phone because he was working in the government office where they literally just listen to everything your cell phone says. And
Yeah,
if you ever want an idea for that, like just watch how all of a sudden you'll be talking in front of your phone about something, and then mysteriously ads for it will show up on your social media, usually within about 20 minutes. I've
yeah.
watched it happen in real
Oh yeah,
time.
everybody talks about that. How they were thinking about they needed a new toaster, and all of a sudden ads for toasters popped up. It's like
Right. That was
like
I
it's not
remember
surprising. Like you guys, I understand how this happens, right? Like people were acting like it's magic, and I'm like, no, it's not.
well, and Brett Weinstein actually like he got in a fight with his wife once and they hadn't talked to anyone about it. And then they both had divorce ads on their social media, like he and his wife. Like that's how crazy this stuff is. I don't even
I shouldn't
necessarily
laugh.
mind
Sorry.
targeted ads, so to speak, which is the reason it doesn't bother me because I've have found cool and interesting things that I actually wanted to buy based on targeting ads. But you got to remember that these people are listening to you. Like that's just the reality of it. So anyway, to answer this question from Kylan Calendar, I just pinned it. If you want to find me on all these social media mediums, you're going to have to end up doing it yourself because I'm shadow banned on basically all of them. But if you go to the hy.page/vradio, I just pinned it in the YouTube chat of my channel. You can do it there. And I keep nudging on Brian because he needs to do the same thing. We need a central place to find Brian on all of his social media. Right,
Yes,
Brian? Right,
yes.
Brian?
But while we're
Right,
at it,
Brian?
yes, I agree.
Is
While we're at it, we
yes.
can put that shameless plug out there that says if you have not yet subscribed to us on YouTube, head over to V Radio and hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to Liberty Unleashed, I am Liberty Unleashed TV on YouTube, and you can find me over there and hit that subscribe button because we are shadow banned. And so we appreciate your support in finding us and hitting also the like button on our videos. That helps as well. Well, it
It
really
sure
does
does.
help us. So, make
And
sure
it
you
makes us feel good. We get that dopamine like, "Ooh, somebody liked my post." We turn into little TikTok kids. It's amazing.
yeah, but we only do it if you smash the like button. You got to smash it.
Or just make sweet love to the like button.
Yeah, I mean, you
Reach
can
out
do
with the
that
like
too.
button and just gently touch it and show it how much you love it.
It, before you get into your thing that I keep interrupting here about Google and their censorship, as you bring up Snowden, people watch the documentary of Snowden, they watch the movie that's out there about him, and yet still come to the conclusion that he's a traitor. I haven't figured that one out yet. I'm still trying to put my hand around how you can see that everything that he knows and that he exposed and determine that he's the bad guy in the situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's
And yeah, and that's one of the things Glenn Greenwald, like basically he ended up like moving to Brazil and doesn't come back to the United States because apparently they want to arrest him too just for reporting on it. So, yeah, that's he definitely this saw huge constitutional violations of our rights going on, and then he shared it, and he's not the only one. All right, so one of the things you got to remember, guys, is that at this point, a lot of people use Google to understand like basically everything. Like I still remember when Google first came out, it was like, wow, this is such a powerful tool. I mean, I don't even need an encyclopedia anymore. Do you remember encyclopedias? We used to buy those big giant collections of books that nobody uses anymore. I can find anything I want on Google. Google is so helpful. And the thing is that now that's pretty much what everybody uses. So if they can control what is seen on Google, then they have a huge amount of control over what anybody sees. And alternative media in particular, like if you watch my video, "A Danger to Our Democracy," which is another one of my Think for Yourself videos, the mainstream media in this weird, creepy, like video where like this guy basically took all of these mainstream media outlets and put them talking over top of each other to point out that both, well, not both, all Fox, MSNBC, ABC, like all of the major mainstream media outlets all over the country were saying, like reading the same script, and one of the major key points was this is extremely dangerous to our democracy was said by all of them. The idea that that there might be an alternative to mainstream media was somehow dangerous to our democracy. And that brought me back to in that same video, I posted a Twitter thread that a lot of people have used, as an example. But somebody said, Elon Musk buying Twitter really worries me because, if our democracy is to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. And I was like,
it's amazing how much the mainstream media keeps people in the dark and doesn't report what's going on in our country and around the world. how little the people who rely on mainstream media, how little they know about what's really going on out there.
Right. So, let's go ahead and have a look at this. Count says Georgie Devon. This was actually listed in the article that you sent me earlier. Google's new global censorship tool was introduced today at 9:10 a.m. via an email press release, according to Latoya Drake, head of Google News Initiative. Instead of global internet censorship, Google calls it fact check tools. Its purpose is to eliminate dissent on any topic Google selects. Their partners are the United Nations, the World Health Organization, plus 71 pages of partners are listed in the fine print on this website. I will make this link available to you guys in my description. I forgot to do it for the show. But again, it also shows another article on it. New global internet censorship begins today. And they call it fact check tools. Google's algorithms are designed to delete websites that criticize topics such as COVID-19 statistics, which I might add is interesting because I can actually say that word out loud now and not lose my channel. But for over 2 years, I couldn't. The World Bank, the FBI's crime statistics, Pharma GKB, and a one world global government. Other topics include global warming statistics provided by the IPCC, climate change based in Geneva, Switzerland, the World Health Organization's findings on any topic that they select. Then it says the United Nations Energy Statistics Database, the Environmental Protection Agency's greenhouse gas reports, the Anheuser-Busch Baldwin's Brewery. That's interesting. Stanford University's Deep Solar. The algorithms are Google's last-ditch attempt to control the internet before the people worldwide can no longer access it. The goal is to have one point of view. Google calls it data commons. All data supports one global government under the United Nations banner. Google has the only say on what the news read or gets read or blocked from the internet. Vinton Cerf has worked for Google since 2005 as their chief internet evangelist. His main function is global internet development for United Nations UN One World Government. In the below video sponsored by the UN, Cerf said the internet must be controlled by minimizing abusive behavior used in harmful ways. Who determines what is abusive and harmful? Who enforces this international law? It will be determined later by a global government run by unelected bureaucrats. The UN's Internet for All campaign will censor us all. So I want to go ahead and play this, but go ahead and I'm sure you want to comment first.
Well, it's, I guess, the Google News Lab, and it's a team within what's called the GNI, or the Google News Initiative, whose mission is to collaborate with journalists. Okay. They didn't really define in this article journalists.
Collaborate.
Yeah, to collaborate with journalists to fight misinformation and other things. The Google News Initiative, the GNI, works with publishers and journalists to fight misinformation.
Right. And who gets to determine what is and is not misinformation? And that's really what it comes down to. Google. What's that?
I guess the journalist, and if you could see me, I'd be doing air quotes, the journalist in Google who gets to decide that.
Right. And so basically, again, guys, this may not seem like a big deal until you think about it. Like, first of all, I mean, I doubt any of you found me on Google. I don't actually, most of the people I think found me, like the vast majority, it's pretty much always been from other channels. So I have some people here from Good Logic. I have people here from WYSIWYG TV. I have people here who know of me because of Strategic Eyes. I have people who know of me because Lynn Wood shared my Kyle Rittenhouse video. So I'll put a poll up about that. I'm kind of curious how people found me. But anyway, the point is that you probably didn't find me on Google. What were you going to say, Brian?
Nobody knows who I am. They don't know about me.
It's just a matter of time, my friend. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
If you continue to associate with greatness, some of it will rub off on you. Yeah.
Fake news.
Hey, dude, I'm a wrestling coach. I know all about skin diseases. It'll rub off on you, right? Okay. Wow. So anyway, let's go ahead and have a look at this.
The United Nations is calling everyone together to agree on a key text, the Global Digital Compact. Building on the Secretary General's roadmap for digital cooperation, the compact is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bring everyone, governments, civil society, private sectors, and others, together to agree on what kind of digital future we want and need. As part of an inclusive preparatory process, The United Nations is interested in hearing from everyone, everywhere, on what they want to see in the compact.
So I guess that was all of it.
The vision of an
Oh, wait, no, it
open,
isn't.
free, and
There we go.
secure digital future underpins my roadmap for digital cooperation. And my recent report on our common agenda proposes a global digital compact aimed at bringing governments, the private sector, and civil society together in support of this vision.
The Secretary General of the United Nations has called for a global digital compact as a major outcome for next year's Summit of the Future. We need your views and inputs so we can present them to the UN member states and the world.
The UN wants to hear from you. What do we want countries, major technology companies, and citizens to do?
Hello, my name is Vince Cerf. I'm Google's chief internet evangelist. So how do we maximize the utility of the internet while minimizing abusive behaviors that try to use it in harmful ways? So your job in participating in this activity is to help those who either make laws or enforce laws or create technology or build and offer products and services to hear from you what it is that you can see, what insights you're gaining from your exposure to and use of these technologies so we can improve it.
At the World Wide Web Foundation, we have worked on the contract for the web. But this time around, we are looking at a global digital compact. This is huge, and that is why your voice needs to be heard. We are here to ensure that marginalized voices, men and women, everywhere should be heard in the process and in the thematics. It is really very important that this is for everyone, so that those who ordinarily may not have the time, the opportunity, the connectivity, or the skills to come online and be part of an online community will also have their voices and their issues represented. The other thing is that we want the Global Digital Compact to be gender responsive.
An open internet that is global, free, interoperable and secure is essential for economic growth, social development and self-expression. Twitter is committed to the open internet, and the Global Digital Compact is an excellent opportunity for everyone, including governments, civil society and the private sector, to come together to advance this vision for our collective digital future.
20 years ago, the United Nations affirmed the belief that the information society would change people's lives. Today, this commitment made at the World Summit on the Information Society is under threat because of the centralization, weaponization, and privatization of the internet and the digital space. The Global Digital Compact is a renewed opportunity to make progress towards a shared vision of a digital future, one that protects the internet as a public resource, ends digital exclusion, responds to environmental crisis, and achieves social and gender justice. This can only be achieved with the active engagement of all stakeholders.
Social and gender justice. Like, we have to be able to control the internet to bring this about. Like, that of itself is a huge red flag. I'm like, well, you guys want to ban a lot of stuff on that, including like real scientific studies that you just don't like. Did you have a comment before I hit play again?
No, go ahead. I'm just shaking my head at this, but yeah, go ahead.
Multi-stakeholder model has been a fundamental principle in internet policy. We are therefore keen to ensure that the Global Digital Compact will follow this practice.
Internet is impacting our lives even when we don't have access to it. This is why we think that it's crucial that everyone takes part to the discussion on its future. And this is the reason why we want to invite you to take part to the dialogues around the Global Digital Compact and understand what you wish, what you want for the future of the internet.
Inspiring.
أعطيها اللون.
أسبيشنا.
التجربة كانت مميزة ومعلومات مثيرة.
بهترين.
كلاس.
Importante.
Éberség leintő.
Leakás. Разнообразно.
Zatbóik. Hasznos volt.
Muchas gracias. Merci.
Let's answer the UN's call and co-create the Global Digital Compact together.
Hey, let's just use a really cheerful sounding Jamaican guy to make the whole thing sound awesome.
Yeah, man.
Hey, man, we're going to take away all of your rights on the internet, man. It's going to be great. We'll do it together.
I mean, it doesn't matter what they say in there. The fact that it's the UN makes me distrust it right from the very beginning. I can't
Right.
speak for every libertarian out there, but the ones I know, they don't have anything good to say about the UN or NATO, and they don't have any trust for these organizations. The UN, to me, is probably one of the most anti-freedom organizations out there, and equally as corrupt. And for them to sit there and talk about how they're going to make this free internet, and I don't think they mean free as in no everybody gets it for free. I think they're trying to say like it's free. The information out there is great information, free speech, and that's not what they're doing in any way. You got to read between the lines there.
Well, and I think that the fact that they're bringing up the issue of abusive language as being part of it. We talked earlier about how they want to redefine words and terms. Again, I was the only time I've ever been threatened, like as in somebody doxed me, got my address, threatened me and my family. All I did was share a video that I had made with all the real science about whether or not trans athletes have advantages in sports. That was what I did. That was hateful. That was evil. That was bad. I actually also just had a guest like refuse to come on the show based on my gender-based conduct or content, and that's a guy I've had on my show many times over the years. And I'm not going to say who it is because I still want people to go watch his movies because they're very important anti-war message movies. But the point is that they really want to clamp down on any just even just telling the truth. Like, you can't tell the truth about the issue with trans people, or that's hate speech. You can't tell the truth about FBI crime statistics, or that's hate speech. Oh, and there was actually something else that occurred to me to mention earlier when we were discussing the issue about the Google algorithm that Logical Checkmate brought up. And I want to say this because otherwise I'll forget. But like, I put a Chat GPT bot in my Discord just so we could play with it and argue with it and see what it would say. And the Chat GPT bot literally lied and brought up Kyle Rittenhouse crossing state lines with a rifle, and then I argued with it and corrected it, and then it admitted that it was wrong, and then didn't say that anymore. And then I asked it 2 weeks later, and it went through the same thing. Like, and the reason that's relevant is you have to remember that they want Chat GPT to be used to disseminate information, to essentially kind of just be like an AI way to determine what is and is not. And the fact that it's lying about something that we debunked about Kyle Rittenhouse, like almost immediately, something that was so bad that even the prosecutor stopped trying to bring it up within 2 weeks of the trial starting, is very telling. And they use these kinds of algorithms, or they're all kind of programmed along the similar lines. They have a certain narrative that they want to be the one that everybody sees. Yeah, Google is now like a library where you only have access to what the librarian put on the shelves. Very good, very good.
It's
But
true.
yeah,
Watch the is that the creepy line?
yep.
They talk
Creepy
about
line and
that.
the social dilemma. Yep.
Yeah, they talk about that in there, particularly with how they use it to manipulate stuff like people's position on candidates and the elections. Really, they just need to put the information in front of you they want you to see, and then they can manipulate how people vote, how people feel about candidates. And of course, don't put any information out there about third-party candidates. Do everything you can. If people are going to Google Robert F. Kennedy Jr., make the majority of the articles that come up there first negative about him. Don't put positive articles up there in the order. So there's a lot of ways that they can manipulate the data. There's a lot of ways, obviously, they can censor it. They have every ability to do that as well. And it's been proven that they do it. I mean, that's really where it's at. And the thing is, as we talked about before, we tend to have the power to change this and not use those services, but we're so used to those services. As much as I don't like Google, I'm still obviously podcasting on YouTube. I still end up going to Google, excuse me, to search for stuff, like even just a restaurant near me. I don't, it doesn't even occur to me to bring up something like DuckDuckGo or something else. It's on my phone because I got an Android phone, and all of a sudden I'm using Google without a thought.
Right.
So as much as I would like to boycott them, they're everywhere. I use Google Maps, and again, it's done without a thought. I know that there's Waze and some other apps out there, but I got so used to the way the information is presented with the Google Maps. This is before I was really like, Google's horrible, that it just got so used to it that it was something I never changed. And so it's one thing to say we as the people in the market have every ability to stop and control this. It's another thing to actually consciously do it and do it with enough people to make a difference.
Right. Well, and it's important to note that, yeah, okay, technically we would have other market alternatives, but like, it doesn't change the fact that, it, this is not just being designed to sell more products. This is being designed to control the masses. This is mind control. Like,
Right.
It's not like they're doing it for some capitalist interest. They're doing it for a social control interest. And, that would be something that would give even free market libertarians a bit of a pause, like, well, hold on a second here. But the thing is, I've tried to use other search engines and usually they suck. That's just the truth. They're just not good. I've
Exactly.
tried using, like a friend of mine said, well, you should switch to Bing. I'm like, well, I don't actually think Microsoft is a less evil company than Google, but I'll give it a try. And then I'm like, well, shit, I can't find anything on this. But the one thing though is interesting is if you use the DuckDuckGo extension, it will search Google for you, but it'll do it without any knowledge as far as the algorithm won't know who you are, and you'll immediately get different results, which is crazy to me. Like if I'm trying to Google an article for something that they don't want people to talk about, I'll use the DuckDuckGo for like filter, essentially is what I call it, and then I'll get better results than I would if I just put it into Google under my own Google.
Right, exactly. And I mean, the difference between Google and Bing, that's like if you want to listen to the devil on your left shoulder or the devil on your right shoulder.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and that, especially when you consider, Bill Gates, and his weird involvement with the pandemic and stuff like that. That's why I said I don't think I'm gonna go with Microsoft either. DuckDuckGo seems to be an interesting company. And I use VPNs a lot, obviously, but like they have a real annoying downside too, is that they cut your internet speed in half. At least the ones I've been using. They're effective. They hide a lot of your information, but but it's annoying when you're trying to download something, for example, and you used a VPN, like it'll take forever. So anyway, but like they're talking about alternatives to Google, to be able to do that, and but that's basically the end of the Twitter thread that discussed this issue. Again, I haven't been able to confirm any of this independently. I only had an opportunity to look at it, but it sounds like something, that we've been talking about since like the 2008, era. Maybe when people took Alex Jones a little more seriously, for example, and stuff like that. The whole new world order, one world government thing that they're worried about. That or rather they would rather we're not talking about. But it's what's funny to me now is some people are finally getting away with discussing like the Great Reset, and stuff like that. And some of them are big people. Like for example, I keep waiting for Russell Brand to get like deleted off the internet because he says stuff that's really, really, really controversial. Things that would get other people's channels deleted. But I think they're scared to do it because one thing that has been revealed, for example, on YouTube, if you're making enough money for them, they will tend to let you get away with things. In the end of the day, they're still profit motivated, but they will, come down on you otherwise. But for example, PewDiePie, at one point, one of the biggest YouTubers in history, did a Nazi joke, and there was a lot of social upheaval, but they're not going to delete that guy. He's got millions of subscribers, brings in insane amounts of revenue, stuff like that.
And taking that to the same, I don't know, I shouldn't say the same level, but as we point out how people are these days on the internet, it's gotten weird compared to, 2012 and earlier. It really has. And a couple weeks ago, Roger Waters from Pink Floyd was under fire. I don't know if you saw the news on that, but I think it was a reunion for The Wall. And so during his show, the whole thing of The Wall is like it's a theatrical act. The whole album is like a big story. And
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so they acted out, and of course he's got references in there to Nazis. And he has people in his show dressed like Nazis and be part of the act. Well, that's all people had to see. They didn't pay attention to the context, what he was saying, who it was. They just saw that he was doing a performance and had people dressed like Nazis. And all of a sudden they were writing letters trying to get his concert canceled and not let his concert happen at the next venue because of this. And all he had to do was dress some people up in a Nazi uniform. And it's amazing because he's been doing that since whenever the album came out, the early 80s, late 70s, whatever. I forget exactly when it came out, but that's been part of the show since then. Now, all of a sudden on modern internet, when people see it, they're just offended just by seeing it. And now they want it canceled.
Well, and anybody who's ever listened to Pink Floyd and watched that movie knows that it's not an endorsement of fascism. That was like the character in the movie goes to a horrible dark place in his mind, and that's like kind of a drug-induced like hallucination moment in his life. It's not meant to be an endorsement of fascism at all.
Right. That's, I mean, Roger Waters was saying the same thing in his statement. Like, we're against it, not for it. You know?
Right. Well,
like,
we're using it as a horrific example of badness. Don't do this. Right.
Right.
You know, and that was like, but they needed a reason to go after him anyway, because he's been very inconvenient to them lately. He has a lot of takes on things that, again, they would really rather he just shut up. You know, and anytime a celebrity isn't following the Hollywood line of just, going along with whatever the current politically correct woke narrative is, then they need to go after you. They need to find a way to silence you. So it doesn't surprise me. I had heard about that. Glenn Greenwald actually reported on that too. And, again, I will recommend Glenn Greenwald to everybody if you haven't. Check him out on Rumble. You can subscribe to him on YouTube and he'll have somewhat shorter versions of his videos. But honestly, I only subscribe to him on YouTube because it then tells me when he put out something new, which is better than Rumble's algorithm. So like then I'll go on Rumble and I'll go listen to him. But he reported on what you're talking about, in addition to also reporting on what we're getting ready to be discussing, which is, the strange return to, shadow bans on Twitter. So basically what they're,
before
go
we
ahead.
do that, since we're
before we do
talking
that,
about-
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Since we're talking about freedom and anti-freedom and all this freedom stuff that Liberty Unleashed like to talk about, I forgot when we opened the show, I wanted to do this and wish Dr. Ron Paul a happy birthday.
Oh, I didn't even know it was his birthday.
Yes,
That's cool.
and this is the guy, the reason why Liberty Unleashed show even exists. I mean, and you see those signs back in 2008, 2010 that said Ron Paul cured my apathy. I was definitely one of those guys. I was one of those people. And, Dr. Paul, how much we supported him back in the day and how we were big.
Well, that's how you and I met. So yeah.
Big Ron Paul groupies. I mean, no other way to put it.
I actually still have, I'm pretty sure I have my campaign signs sitting in my closet.
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff like, Ron Paul Revolution beer mug, Ron Paul Revolution posters, the revolution with the love spelled in it.
Right.
There,
Yeah.
that revolution. But so it's Dr. Paul's birthday, and a big happy birthday to Dr. Ron Paul. I think, he's libertarian number one when it comes to this. And I know a lot of people wouldn't be out discussing stuff like the Federal Reserve, the way we discuss freedom and the way we discuss libertarianism if it wasn't for Dr. Paul and the internet. Now that we think about that, I mean, he was out long before the internet, but this internet thing allowed it just to spread like a wildfire. And I think, to preface that is what we're getting into, these censorships and these shadow bans. That's what scares the establishment. That's what scares the powers to be. Because before, Ron Paul had a little newsletter, maybe 20,000 people across the country read it, and not too many people took him serious or knew about him. And then all of a sudden, he does this video, Freedom to Fascism. He's part of that, and the internet's out, and everybody's talking about it, and you can watch the clip on YouTube, before YouTube was even Google, when it was just YouTube. And this idea just spread like a wildfire. And I think, he had those money bombs where he raised more money by grassroots than those guys were raising by their corporate super PACs that were out there. And I think that kind of thing is what scares these people more than anything. And so it's, logical that they would want a shadow ban or even full out censorship that kind of stuff because they don't want it. They don't want alternative points of views. They don't want people who can think for themselves or think in terms of, hey, I'm a free person. I get to do what I want. They don't want that. So, big happy birthday and a shout out to Dr. Ron Paul.
Yep. And ironically, he also endorsed Tulsi Gabbard. Despite her other stances on things, it was mostly just because of the anti-war stance. That was what did it for me. Was a friend of mine shared a video with me, and I don't know if it's still on YouTube, but it was called "Ron Paul Courageously Speaks the Truth," and it was Ron Paul versus Rudy Giuliani. And Giuliani had said, they hate us because of our freedoms. Yeah, Ron Paul crushing Rudy Giuliani like a cockroach was always entertaining.
Great.
But it just so many memories about that time period. And I think that a lot of people woke up because somebody actually sent me that. Oh, I'm gonna forget her name. Beautiful singer, who did that. Like Ron Paul,
Amy
stand up for
Allen?
our constitutional rights. Yep, yeah. He's like, do you remember this? It was actually Winning Reality who sent me that. I'm like, well, yeah, of course I remember that. The girl with dark hair, dark eyes, beautiful, singing something I like.
Amy Allen got jumped. She got mugged, and it was after that Ron Paul video came out that she did. Ron Paul. Yeah,
Yeah.
she went into hiding for a while. If people remember, after that came out, you didn't hear from Amy Allen for a long time. Yeah, she got jumped, and the theory was to basically they did not like that video and they did not want her. And in fact, it's very hard to find the original on YouTube today. You have to find people who basically download it and repost it. But to find her version, her post of it, I don't think you can on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, that song was great. We all loved it. It was like the anthem for Ron Paul because it was his song, Ron Paul.
Right. Yeah, it was a good song. Did she come to Revolution March? Did that happen?
No, she didn't come to Revolution March. She did go to a couple of his rallies, I know, in the 2012 campaign. We couldn't get her to show up for Paul Festival. But I believe because he did a rally down there in Tampa, same time we did Paul Festival. And I believe she showed up for that. But I mean, she was hard pressed for a while to do anything political, particularly for Ron Paul after she got mugged. Because the belief was that assault was based on her support for him.
Wow, yeah, that's something that's crazy. I didn't hear about that part. That's just messed up. And it's funny, I Googled it. Ironically, we're talking about Google, right? I actually put it in a YouTube search, and yeah, I can't find it anywhere. So I don't know where he got that. He sent that to me privately on Discord. I would have just thrown it back up because it was entertaining. But yeah, that was an interesting memory. So I guess
great walk down memory lane, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. So Musk says we'll address shadow banning soon, but former trust and safety exec explains why that will be difficult. Basically, he had appointed a CEO that, as Glenn Greenwald recently pointed out, kind of made him scratch his head because, like, if this was all about trying to make it, about, free speech and the mainstream media not having control over everything. I think they said that she was a former executive from like MSNBC or something. Like, wow, you picked badly, But basically, Elon Musk is promising to soon address the lack of transparency around shadow banning on the social network formerly known as Twitter. That is not outright banning a user, but making changes that ensure their content is no longer circulated and kept out of public view. In replies to users on X, Musk apologized for why the process is taking so long and explained what's holding up X from providing the data to users. Shadow banning has been a topic of concern even in Twitter's earlier days, as users didn't know they had been penalized in this way for their tweets. When enforced, users can post to the platform as usual, but would not notice their tweets would simply that are not getting traction and replies that they normally would. The topic often became politicized as Trump and other Republicans complained that Twitter was making their tweets invisible. After taking over Twitter, Musk even attempted to prove that shadow banning was commonplace at the social network by releasing information to the public, though ultimately what was shared was just behind the curtain look at the complicated task of social media moderation. I wouldn't agree with that. I read the Twitter files. But anyway, still, Musk has insisted that users should have the right to know if they've been shadow banned. At the Viva Tech conference, the Twitter owner said the company was working on a way to show users if their accounts were affected by the Twitter system in any way. And the thing that is more insidious, in my opinion, about shadow banning is that. It's meant to create kind of an effect. If you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you've been shadow banned, then you don't know you've been shadow banned. And then you don't know you then and you tweet something and nobody responds to it, then it gives the illusion that nobody cares or doesn't like what you said, or not engaging with what you said. They have no interest in what you said. And it doesn't tell you, it's not like an outright ban, right? Because if you know you're banned, you can just go ahead and make another account, right? So you're just assuming, okay, well, I guess nobody's interested in what I'm saying. So if you shadow ban someone on Twitter and they're posting links to things like that might be important to people like you and me, then and you shadow ban them instead of just outright banning them, you go, well, I guess nobody agrees with this. Nobody's interested. Nobody's engaging. All back to the whole dopamine hit addiction thing that is the internet. Did you have any comments on that?
Well, I mean, I think, again, I kind of suffer from some of that in terms of it starts to feel like nobody wants to hear what my podcast has to say. And I know, and I have to remember that I am shadow banned, that I have to work to get that information out, that I'm going to have to spend time, possibly money, anything like that to grow my podcast, where somebody else who is willing to play along with them doesn't have to. The fact that this is coming from Twitter and Elon Musk is very disappointing. I mean, if I had to add that would be because his whole point was to make Twitter free, to let free speech happen and to let people decide. So if he's now taking a different stance and saying, look, I'm for shadow ban, I don't think it matters his reason. I don't think there's anything that he can say to me that would say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, shadow ban some people.
Well, the argument is supposed to be because the far left keeps suggesting that that he's losing all of the companies are leaving Twitter because they don't agree with his policies. The funny thing is that I've kept monitoring my Twitter, and I even subscribed to the Twitter Blue thing as kind of like a good faith of, hey, good job, Elon. Let me give you some money.
Well, I did. Yeah, I subscribed to it too, thinking that would help me grow a little bit, help me get more response, more following.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's definitely not doing that. But in addition to that, what I was getting is the reason I said that was that I watched my Twitter feed. Like, there wasn't and that was funny is like there's that viral video of him calling out that guy as lying, because he said, well, I've seen all this, extra hate speech on my Twitter feed. And Elon's like, oh, really? Can you give me an example? Well, I've just seen a lot more hate speech on my Twitter. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, if you're seeing a lot of it, it should be pretty easy for you to give a good example, huh? And then the guy's like, well, maybe we should talk about something else. And then Elon's like, you just lied. And but the reason that was relevant is that there's no more hate speech in my Twitter feed than there ever was. Like, but that's not what was reported. They were saying like, ever since Elon took over Twitter, I've had 30 people use the N-word like 1 million times. I'm like, I haven't seen any of that. Like,
well, I mean, as much as we despise it, that's part of free speech. I mean, again, I'm not supportive of people using the word, particularly in a context where they mean it to be hate. But it is part of free speech. And, to run to Elon and say, well, we want this banned or we want this censored, and then get mad at him if he doesn't want to do it. Shame on those people. But that's, I think, the culture that we talked about earlier in the society we live in. If we don't like it, it's not censorship. It's just, it's bad for us. So we're not, even if it is censorship, it's good censorship because that kind of content is bad for you and I. It's bad for the people. And so people tend to stop caring about freedom of speech, freedom of, the right to bear arms. We can go down the list as libertarians and stuff we're going to do the show on or have done the show on that people stop caring about because something emotionally affects them. That's really where this is at. It's all about my feelings, and my feelings are important. So we've got to censor the millions to make sure my feelings aren't hurt.
Well, right. And they label it under that. And that just keeps bringing me back to then if somebody said something you don't like, then block them. Then they cease to exist. Like this works so good on my Facebook. I'm like, bing, nope, well, I'm never going to hear from that person again. Like, you think, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend not to take the time to block people. Although I'm gonna tell you that I did once I came back after Elon bought Twitter, I started to get active on it again because, like everybody else, they were like, finally, change of guard. This is going to be much better. And I'm not the type that it's just easy usually to ignore stuff than to go in and block it. Like I'm busy. But I gotta tell you, there's a couple people, I don't know if you know her, but Nina Turner, she's one on Twitter that I eventually had to block because I just couldn't stand seeing her post daily. It was that bad. The kind of stuff that she promotes was that bad. But what I'm doing is making your point. And that is exactly that. The feature is there to block it. She's very much a communist when it comes to her position and how she feels about things. She's posting daily and doesn't want to respond to people who have a different opinion than her. You could prove completely wrong her nonsense about pay and how she wants people to be paid. You could show all the facts and statistics that say that she would be wrong, that you can't just do this, can't have the government and come in and say, okay, everybody has to get $25 an hour. And she doesn't care. She will continue to post that that's how it should be and have to be. She won't make any argument saying this is why, this is where you're wrong. There's no counter arguments. And I couldn't stand it. And so I did exactly what you're talking about, which was block her. What I wouldn't do ever is go crying to Elon or anybody saying, oh, Nina Turner hurt my feelings. We need to censor her.
Right. And that was the other thing, that they took the Trump thing so damn far. Like, it wasn't enough that they blocked him on Twitter and then said, well, it's a private company, they can do whatever they want. That was their attitude initially, but then Parler was like, well, we're not going to block him. So then they had to take Parler off the Google app, and then Amazon had to deny them the ability to use their servers to continue functioning as a service. Like, that is just way, way over the top. And that's, one of the reasons why initially, for example, because TikTok is very clearly a toxic, like, Chinese tool for, destroying our kids. I've looked at that very closely, but like Glenn Greenwald made a very valid point when the government's moving to block Twitter. He's like, well, before we go being comfortable with that, let's not forget the Patriot Act, the overreaction to Iraq, and the government just getting to pick and choose which social media platforms are allowed to work and which ones are not is not a good idea. And that the funny thing is that the government has no interest in banning any other social media platforms that aren't good for kids either, for the most part. And he pointed out, well, why is that? Well, probably because the government doesn't have any control over TikTok, which is the reason why they want it gone. Like, they know that and that's their only reason. It's not like they care about any of the other stuff that's going on there. So it sets a bad precedent. That's actually something I got into an argument with Sitch from Sitch and Adam about, because he was trying to call Glenn Greenwald a hypocrite or something. And I was like, dude, his point is valid. You shouldn't just let the government get around to feeling like, banning whatever social media it wants to, But all of this kind of reminds me back to a kind of a quintessential moment of when
that's the job of the American government. If we were to even consider that we were anywhere close to following the Constitution, there'd be nowhere in there where that would be their job. That Congress, there's nothing in Congress job description that says that they should be banning stuff like that. And so, yeah, you can like Twitter, dislike Twitter. You can like Facebook, dislike Twitter. But you absolutely would be setting a bad precedence if you allowed the government to pick which ones we're allowed to use and have and which ones we're not allowed to use and have. Obviously, people like Zuckerberg would be protected, and somebody else like TikTok would be shut down. And I don't think it's for the government to decide who I watch, who my kids watch, what social medias they have or don't have. I think that's for me to decide and me to decide alone. So yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely dangerous to give the government that kind of power.
Well, the way I handle it is just I talk to my kids, and my kids already know that TikTok's a big toxic, bag of sludge. So they already figured it out. But I raised my kids to be independent, critical thinkers instead of expecting my authority to be the only way to handle them. But either way, though, that's actually Sitch actually blocked me over that argument. But, and I didn't even say anything mean to him. I just said, but Sitch, there's a legitimate point to be made here. The government should just not be allowed to, arbitrarily pick which social media networks will work and which ones will not. But anyway, the point I was going to make is that it all kind of brings back a memory to me of Ross Perot versus George Bush Sr. versus Bill Clinton. And they brought up the V chip, which was, I guess, supposed to, I think it's called a V chip. Basically, it was meant to be a chip to be put on TVs to censor like extreme stuff, and Ross Perot was like kind of like shifting uncomfortably, like, why are we talking about this? And then he goes, I got an idea. Turn it off. If you don't like what's on your TV, turn it off. Can we talk about something else now? Like,
Right.
because he didn't want to discuss that. He wanted to discuss how NAFTA was about ready to destroy our economy. And it's funny because you can go back to his stuff. His infomercials are still sitting on YouTube, and you can still watch them.
That's
And
amazing.
everything he predicted was going to happen from NAFTA definitely happened. So, but anyway, the point is just it was as simple as that. They were already trying to introduce this idea, that should the presidents of the United States be discussing this issue of a chip be put in your television to censor certain information, and that also kind of brings you back to another point, that is one of the reasons I did the danger to our democracy video was that before the internet, because you were talking about Ron Paul and the internet and the effect that it had on Ron Paul's candidacy. And it wasn't just him. It was for Kucinich. It was for Gravel. It was for basically anybody they wanted to get rid of. The internet was the last place for them to exist. Whereas pre-internet, the media got to select who we heard about, period. And it was usually through debates. And then even with the internet, they tried to screw Ron Paul out of the debates by saying, well, you don't poll high enough. He's like, well, that's interesting because I poll higher than Giuliani literally everywhere. And you guys are putting him in everything. And it's because the media, I guess, wanted to see Rudy Giuliani 9/11 versus Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Like they thought it would be good for ratings or whatever. But, I'm sure that his pro-war message was really popular with the media too. But the point is that these people want to control what you even get to see in the first place. And like I said, it's a social contagion issue. If social contagion's not a thing, why are you so worried about what I might get socially contagious, with? Like that's basically what they think that they're trying to do. They're trying to control us, it doesn't mean, however, and I should make this clear, it doesn't mean that everything that you see in alternative media is automatically true either, but you got to engage your brain and, use your own ability to think. That's why so much of my content is just about that and not in so much as about the right versus left conflict is because I want people just to be able to go ahead and look at things and go, okay, wait a minute. Somebody's trying to suck me into an echo chamber with this. I'm not buying it. I'm going to look at things myself. And that's really what I hope people get out of my content more than anything else.
Right.
But
I just had a conversation in the household about that. The internet is great because of all the different and alternative information that's out there, but you still have to use your head and start thinking for yourself and start thinking whether this can be true, possible, plausible, all that stuff or not, and then search for not necessarily alternative opinions, but do some research. That was always our thing in crypto, which is do your own research. And that was our thing back in the day with Ron Paul talking about, like the Federal Reserve and all that. Like, don't take our word for it. Do your own research on it. Look it up yourself. And, yes, the internet is or was great because of all the information you could get out there. You just have to learn to sort through it and figure out which is, it's the forest from the trees. It's the, you got to be able to tell the bullshit that's out there and what's not. But what we don't need is the government and these outlets trying to tell us what's bullshit and what's not. We should still be deciding for ourselves.
And I just went over this because our democracy does not equal your, it does not, it's not ours, it equals your democracy. And that was the point I made, was that when they're saying this is extremely dangerous to our democracy, it's a Freudian slip because the media owned our democracy.
Right.
And so when they say our, they mean them. They don't mean us.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, remember folks that, you do need to support alternative media. If you guys want this to succeed, then you have to go listen to it. You have to go watch it, share it. That's really the best way. Tim Pool brings that up all the time. Really the best way to help him is just to continue to share his stuff. Mind you, he's not exactly hurting for subscribers at this point, but that's the other thing I've noticed is just a preference for people who do deep dives and deep thinking and deep research. Like the algorithm doesn't like them as much as people who just bullshit and, basically do mindless stuff on, mindless content constantly. And I think that that's kind of by design too. They don't really want us to be doing any deep thinking. Comes back to that George Carlin bit about the American dream. It's like they don't want people capable of deep, intellectual critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't serve their interest.
Right.
So but overall though, find some alternative media. And then I'm actually in the middle of I'm studying some of those master classes that are being offered. And then ironically, of all people, it was oh, I'm gonna forget his name now. He's a famous left-leaning thinker though. Oh, Noam Chomsky said, if you really want to be thinking for yourself, you have to watch stuff you don't always agree with. Like, you have to expose yourself to what other people think. And he's like, and if you don't do this on a regular basis, it literally doesn't exercise that part of your mind that is able to get to the truth of things. And go ahead.
There's only so much, what's the word, fun or satisfaction in talking to people every day that have the same point of view as you. You at some point know exactly how they think, how they feel on all these different subjects. And so what's the point? It's basically another round of high fives every day, like high five, you're for freedom. If you don't spend the time to listen to what the people who you don't agree with are saying and try to even understand where they're coming from, I find that would be very boring. I'd find it to be very unsatisfying. And the fact that you talked about somebody blocked you just because they didn't like your opinion on how you were interpreting Greenwald is probably a testament to what we're talking about, where people just want to be surrounded with that echo chamber, with the people that think the way they do and nothing else. It was like, I can't listen to that guy from the Young Turks, but he's horrible. But at the same time, I have to listen, because how do I, if I want to know how to combat how they're thinking about gun control and stuff, I need to know what they're saying and what they think. Listen to his opinion of Kyle Rittenhouse and that situation. I'm like, yeah, did we both watch the same footage, or do you have different footage than me? Do we both have the same internet to look up the laws, or do you have a different internet than me?
Right.
What are
And
you
then there's
seeing
this
here, buddy?
bizarre thing going on because Anna Kasparian is changing her attitude about a bunch of things, and it's causing problems for them. Although I have to give Cenk Uygur credit, he's not trying to fire her over it, even though there are a lot of people that are pissed at her because she's not, parroting the towing the line, but I remember something they reported, which was that there was a fight at a Carmine's restaurant in New York over mask and vax mandates. And so they immediately assumed that it must have been MAGA Republicans fighting with somebody over mask and vax mandates. And then it turned out they were actually Black Lives Matter protesters who showed up the next day to accuse Carmine's of racism. So then the Young Turks never spoke about the topic ever again. So they didn't retract. They just didn't. The whole story just went away.
Look,
you guys can.
We got to move on. What's over here? Look left.
Right. Oh, and I got to give a shout out to a friend of the show, Johnny Walker Dread. He's in the chat. He says, I was skeptical of Anna, but I think she legitimately adjusted her worldview. And I'm headed in that direction too, because I cannot imagine what benefit she's getting out of it, because the Young Turks is losing enormous amounts of subscribers because of this shit. Because they have, because basically the Young Turks was like the MSNBC of YouTube. They were, feeding out that line, very heavily, and so now we have somebody who's like, you know what? No, don't call me a birthing person. Maybe trans athletes shouldn't be in sports, and maybe just letting out every criminal out of, all the time in a never ending revolving door of justice. Maybe that's not such a good idea. Basically just going against what I would call I call it the alt left, is just the absolute psychopathic, crazy stuff that is being pushed right now that she just finally had enough of about. And then she goes on Sitch and Adams show to discuss it, which I was pretty shocked by, but she was open about it. I'm kind of I'm always going to be skeptical of anybody with a crazy amount of YouTube subscribers, because honestly, the funny thing is, as much as I would like to have a bigger audience, I've noticed that these people become kind of slaves to their audience, and that can affect their ability to to be good journalists, and that's why sometimes I have to report on things that not everybody wants to hear on my channel, so I just make people aware. I kind of try to condition my audience from the beginning, just be aware I'm going to tell the truth about stuff whether you like it or not. Fortunately enough, I think my audience is here for that, but a lot of these people are not. They're conditioned to go along with, they want their they want their version of reality parroted back to them, and I think that's actually what's hurting CNN right now is that MSNBC already kind of has that group of people locked down. And so they were trying to compete with MSNBC for the people who wanted that version of reality. And there's just not enough viewership for it because the people who hold that crazy alt view are like, they only make up like 6% of the population. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, to think that a show like The Young Turks is like completely welcome on social media and shows like ours are the shadow banned ones is crazy thought. But to think that they're losing tons of subscribers because of Anna doing what she's doing rather than gaining subscribers and people going, okay, now this is a good show. There's different opinions going on here. A conversation's actually happening. But what's actually happening is a fan of The Young Turks are like, we don't want this conversation. This is ridiculous. You're obviously wrong, so you shouldn't even have a voice. That's what's happening. I mean, that's what I was talking about in the beginning with where our society's come to. I don't recall it being like that. Years ago when we were doing this stuff on the internet, we got labeled, we got made fun of, but I don't recall it being so bad to where it's like, no, you're wrong. We don't even want to hear your argument.
Well, right. Or rather, your argument is dangerous and we
Right.
need to protect people from your argument. Like, that's why I
Right.
gave that, that's why I use that Nazi meme, which is, censoring social media to protect people from dangerous ideas, because that's what you're supposed to do, and at the end of the day, I hope that people kind of remember this, that, I imagine, can you imagine like what, if we could look back, because like you and I are looking back on 2008 now, and that was a long time ago. I wish I could know for sure what, say, 2 generations from now was going to be like, like, is it going to be worse? Is it going to be better? And I'm not sure because there's hope because I think the woke problem seems to have gone from jumping the shark to jumping the megalodon. Like they're pushing it a little too far now. So people are starting to push back. I'm just hoping that it stays that way. It reminds me of if you've ever watched The Crucible is about the Salem witch trials. And there was one girl in particular who was kind of parroting most of the accusations and saying people were witches when they were not. Eventually, she started doing it too much to the point that she lost credibility and she accused some people that were too politically powerful. So then all of a sudden her power went away and she actually ended up leaving town. But like I have a feeling that that could happen. I'm hoping that that happens, that people finally are starting to get the message that, you guys have taken this too far. But at the same time, then I have more black pill moments when I go and I'm like, man, this person is immune to facts. Like nothing I show this person will change their mind. And Cenk Uygur on the Rittenhouse thing is a perfect example of that. I did a stream reviewing his argument with Destiny about it, and Destiny basically got out the bitch hand and the pimp hand and just slapped the shit out of them with both of them. And Cenk Uygur will not back off on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, I know people personally in my life who won't back off on the Kyle Rittenhouse. They still say stuff like he crossed state lines illegally, which I'm like, first of all, add more of that. I think you mean illegally with a gun that he shouldn't have had, not because we're not, communist Russia. We're not the Soviet Union. You're allowed to cross state lines whenever you want. There's nothing illegal about it. So just saying he crossed state lines illegally, he always gets me. But they don't care when you bring up the actual laws and say, no, this is why the judge threw out those charges because he didn't break any laws in terms of the gun that he was holding, how he obtained the gun and everything like that. They won't change their mind. I can still tell you a week later, the conversation will come back up and they'll say, yeah, he crossed state lines illegally. And, it's just a cycle thing. And it's like, what will it take for you to admit that you were wrong? You can still disagree and say that you think Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have defended himself and he's a murderer, but can you back off of that for a little bit? And, this whole he crossed illegally thing or what? I mean, what is it going to take? Like what proof beyond all the proof that's out there can we supply you? And that's what I find amazing is there's like this cognitive dissonance where people just do not want to back off from it. And I mean, I know the term has been around forever, long before the internet. And I know people have suffered from that long before the internet. So the internet must have really just brought it out in numbers, like exposed the numbers, the true numbers of people that are, suffer from that. That's the only thing I can think of. And it also seems to be the news and all that tends to focus on these small percentages of things and make them like a big deal. You know, most of this stuff doesn't happen in my local area. I'm not as worried about my kids at school dealing with like the trans issue with the bathrooms and stuff like that. It hasn't hit my area, but we're a small town area. We're not a big city. We're not a big liberal city either. So, you know, I think they tend to make it seem like the entire society's like that when it's not.
Right. I agree completely. I also want to give another shout out to another friend of the show, Winning Reality. He's actually the one I told you about who sent me the video of Amy Allen. And actually, I'm going to play that here in a moment, but because we found a decent version of it on Rumble that looks okay. But anyway, you know, like just, hey, do you remember this? I was like, yep, I remember that. You know, but and then also Johnny Walker Dread again is in the chat. If you guys have not checked out those channels, you should really check out those channels. Both Winning Reality and Johnny Walker Dread do great content, along with Cool Frog, Strategic Eyes, you know, like, and that's the funny thing also that's different. You know, I think part of it is the business model, Brian, but like when you and I started doing this, like when we were Ron Paul Radio or whatever, like cross promotion was just what you did. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
well,
you always, you know, did that, and nobody does that anymore. And I think part of the problem is because of the YouTube way of paying people, you have kind of an incentive not to want someone else's stuff to be watched because you want them to watch yours, because watch hours is how you get paid. But to me, I just, you know, yeah, I'd like to make a little money at this, but I'm more about just boosting the damn signal, man. Like, no, that to me is so much more important, and we can make money.
you can watch both. You can watch Liberty Unleashed V Radio and Johnny Walker Dread. You don't have to just watch one. And while we're on the topic, I still got to continue to invite myself on Johnny Walker Dread's show. We haven't circled back to that yet. But now that he's here listening, I'm still available, still ready to come on your show. And Winning Reality, if you need another guest, Liberty Unleashed is willing to come on. So let me know. Hit me up.
Yeah, I agree. You know, Winning Round, if you haven't yet, you can reach him on Discord. On my Discord, he goes by Hoot on the Discord. You know, you guys can check him out there. You know, but either way, guys, you know, so I want to go ahead and play this video, you know, because I'm hankering to see this beautiful brunette with her angelic voice stream out the Ron Paul voice.
She was very beautiful. She is.
Yep.
I haven't seen her lately, but I'm sure she still is. I don't think she's lost it.
All right, let's have a look at it.
We haven't followed the Constitution, and that's what we ought to be doing. The system that we have today is ripping off the middle class and the poor. Can you imagine how great a nation we'd have if we didn't have the Federal Reserve System printing all this money? Ron Paul! Save our constitutional rights! Ron Paul! We're not gonna give up the fight! Ron Paul! Start a revolution! Break down, break down, break down, break! Ron Paul! Save our constitutional rights! Ron Paul! We're not gonna give up the fight! Ron Paul! Start a revolution! Break down illegal institutions! Ron Paul!
Oh, the goosebumps. Yes, man. That brought back some memories.
Interesting, an interesting time to be alive, to be sure.
Oh, that was so much fun back then. It really was.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
I mean, it was frustrating and fun at the same time. That's really, there was a lot of momentum, meeting all these new people who felt the same way. That
Right.
was great. Watching him, what they did to him in the mainstream media and how they tried to keep him out of debates, and what they did to him, of course, at the primaries was nothing but frustrating. But man, the amount of friends, new friends that we made back then, because of that whole Ron Paul revolution. Our mutual friend, my brother Ray. If it wasn't for him, I mean, I'm sure I would have heard of Ron Paul, but I heard of him much sooner because Ray was always one step ahead of me on that kind of thing. But man, we loved that song. We always played it on our radio show, the North Virginia Patriots show. It was just, man, I still have goosebumps from watching that song.
That's actually, that's how I met you and Ray. It was I called into the North Virginia Patriots show. And then you
Yeah.
guys recruited me because you wanted me to be on the show. Yeah, that was forever ago.
We're like, man, whoever that jerk is who keeps calling on our show, we just need to get him on here full time.
Well, somebody on the show needed to be smart, so
Yeah,
at least one
I just had the
intellectual, right?
looks,
Right. Yeah, that was what it was. We used to make fun of that picture you had that wasn't very flattering, but that was the picture that you.
Tuco.
Oh,
I always
wow.
put my picture of Tuco up there from
Great.
Good, the Bad, the Ugly.
Right. And it was funny, just like people nowadays, they don't realize how good they have it that candidates can fight to the front and exist. Because like even in 2008, like I don't think Trump would have gotten very far. Bernie would have probably been burned out like real quick. Like they would have gotten him off the media as fast as they could. Like, Tulsi probably wouldn't even have lasted more than 2 debates. Like that's just how, especially any anti-war people, they were just vanished. Both the right and the left did this. Winning Reality is saying Gary Lamb. That's another great channel, by the way, guys. Gary Lamb wants to do a stream with everybody. You guys, if you haven't checked out Gary Lamb, you should check him out. He's actually a YouTuber that got shared by Donald Trump, and he has like 60,000 subscribers, but he's so shadow banned that he gets like sometimes like under 500 views for his videos, even though he has 60,000 subscribers. It's insane how badly he's shadow banned.
That would be
but I think
frustrating to have that many subscribers and then get that kind of views. That obviously means that YouTube is purposely not pushing to your subscribers that you put out a video.
Well, and that's the funny thing is there's a race thing to that because they go after him because he's a black guy who supported Trump, and then they go after Strategic Eyes because he's a black cop, pointing out things that they obviously don't want coming out of the black voice. Like it's ironic because it's racist in this bizarre backwards way. Because they really want to be able to.
If you're black and not Democrat, then it's okay for them to hate on you.
Well, and that's the funny thing is Strategic actually votes usually about the same way I do, but he's really big on like breaking down the truth of things, and he's really dangerous in particular to the anti-cop people because he does a great job of humanizing police officers. He's also an amazing speaker. If you guys haven't checked out Strategic Eyes, I just tune him on sometimes just because I want to have something in the background that's nice to listen to because he's so smart. He's so good at talking. I've been trying to convince him to run for office. He won't do it. But like it would be like if you were his campaign manager, it'd be freaking like easy street, like cruise control. Well, I'll just let him talk for a little while and then everything will be great. But yeah, you guys have got to check these people out. All of these other channels. And I'm actually talking about doing a unit channel that I was kind of inspired by doing because of Ron Paul Radio. What I want to do, and I've talked to Winning Reality about it. He said he was on board. I mean, with Johnny Walker and the channel, maybe he'd be on board. And Strategic said he was on board. But the idea would be, let's create a channel wherein I just play a playlist. Like I'll have a computer set up just to do this all the time. It'll be a playlist of everybody's most recent content, and then it'll just keep cycling through the channels. And it'll have a ticker along the bottom to tell people where to subscribe to everybody. Because the other thing I've noticed is that
shout out some domain names right now. I'll register it, and then I'll put up a website that has all of we each have a profile page. The main page, when you go to whatever it is, will have all of our recent videos that we put up, and then your profile page will have all your social media links, everything about you. So you guys come up with I think back then we had Revolution Broadcasting. We had Ron Paul Radio. Then it became Revolution Broadcasting. Then I think it became the Republic Radio. So shout out some domain names. I'll register it, and then I'll put up the site, and we'll start really promoting all these different stuff through one website.
And what I want to do is basically just have like a 24-hour channel that's just going all the time. But like here's another example of why we need to do this. To speak like Gordon Homestead says, V and Johnny Logical, y'all are never even in my feeds. I have to remember to check in with so much in my life that's even hard. Yeah, we're not going to show up in your algorithm frequently, guys. So
you got to hit that bell when you subscribe to our channels on YouTube. You got to
even that alone is not enough. That's what we're getting at. Even that alone doesn't always work.
But don't discourage them from doing it. They still got to.
Oh yeah, no. Do it. Yes, absolutely do it. Just be aware that it's probably not enough. That's also why I always, it's why I have a Discord. It's why I have a Facebook. It's why I have a Twitter. It's why I have a Telegram. Really, the only way to be sure is if you just go ahead and subscribe to me somewhere else, then you'll know when I'm coming on. But like, but the other reason I wanted to do this 24-hour stream idea of just like random, people on, would be that there's also just like a subculture of people on YouTube that this is all they only like streams. Like they'd probably like your shorter content, but that's not really their thing. But if you put it on during a stream, then they would watch it and they go, "Oh wow, that video is really good. I'd never watched that before." I was like, "Oh, I made that about 2 years ago. Maybe you should have checked it out." But there is a subculture of people on YouTube that I think they come here to chat. And they still like your content, but they want to interact with the chat room. So we could put a lot of our content on that, that may not be live streams. Sometimes it'll just be kind of cycling through our basic content, and obviously we'll have to moderate it a little bit just because I don't want it to be a spam fest. But either way, that's a project that I've been talking about for a while, so that we can cross promote everybody and make everybody aware of each other's channels. And Brian just kind of stepped in on, and says, "Yeah, I'll make a central website for it," which would be even cooler. We'll just have to kind of come up with some kind of a criteria for like, we want alternative media thinkers, but they don't necessarily have to agree with us on everything. I don't care if like they're a little more right than me, a little more left than me, as long as I think they have decent integrity, then I would want them to be part of that project. So
right, yeah, I think integrity is a good part of that. I would say for sure.
Right.
I guess we've got to come up. We can put the ones up there we know now for sure, and then find a process later to vet the other ones going forward. And
we'll just put a disclaimer up that just says, not everybody on this network agrees with everyone else on this network, and then leave it at that. So, all right, well, it looks like people like the idea, so that's good at least. So, anyway, folks,
people like the idea. They like our idea.
Yeah, they like the idea of the channel that's just constantly streaming with that goes through different people's stuff. And I kind of figured they would. And the funny thing is that used to just be what we did. That was just, in fact, that was pretty much the only way to do it. There wasn't a YouTube. Like when you and I started, there was a Justin TV, and it would kind of have archives, and then we all used the same Justin TV channel. That was I miss Justin TV because that's why I was VTV for so long. Is my whole thing was we would play documentaries and then chat about them and talk about them, and you can sort of get away with that on YouTube, but really nowhere near, because there was really no copyright violations back then. Like, it was still technically an issue, but like nobody went and did it. Like, there was people weren't going to take your Just TV channel down for, playing a documentary, But anyway,
Okay,
so
well,
go ahead.
well, first of all, and unless you come up with the better one, I just registered Liberty Hut, kind of like a play on Pizza Hut, but Liberty, Liberty Hut.
The Liberty Hut. Right.
libertyhut.com, because it just popped in my mind, so I went and registered it. But if you guys come up with a different one, a better one, I'll register that name too. And again, we can launch the website and start promoting everybody's channel and everybody's content that we feel is worthy to be on our Liberty Hut site.
And we could probably have maybe we'll have a Discord meeting about it. I think pretty much everybody here uses Discord that I was talking about, but like, just kind of discuss kind of like what we want to, what kind of content we want to include, what kind we want to be associated with, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea would be to more or less kind of be free speech. It's just more of a matter of like, what's going to be palatable to the rest of us, like within reason. And I don't think there'll be too many problems with the kind of people that I have in mind inviting to do this. So, but anyway, I'm glad that that's a good idea. That people like that idea. We'll move forward with it. And I think I would want to call it like alt media or something. Figure out some way of like, labeling it in such a way that it's just, a hub for alternative media. And then we'll just keep a stream up all the time because people like that, and take it from there. All right. So anyway, we've been at this for a while. I think we kind of covered everything we were going to cover today. We've got some other topics. I've still got content that I want to do. I've just been really busy because I just got asked to be a sports coach, and I have to go through all of these classes and certifications and all that stuff to be able to do that. Like I was already a sports coach, but an official one, and so that was taking up a lot of my time because a lot of it is online courses. But I still got videos to be made here that I have that I've been sitting on. I'm going to do a reply video, for example, to that recent song that just came out that's really popular, and I feel terrible for already forgetting the name. Redheaded country fellow, really nice looking guitar. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Richmond, north of Richmond, or
yeah, Richmond, north of Richmond. Yeah, I'm gonna do a video talking about my thoughts about that song and stuff like that. Gonna be working on a few other things.
I was
still
working
on the OK
well.
Groomer documentary too. Oh, good. You should do that.
Wow. Okay. Hey, we could do it together.
Well, we could talk about our takes on it, on a stream. I was also going to make a shorter one that was just specifically about one aspect of the song I wanted to talk about.
Right.
But yeah, we could totally do that.
He's been turning down offers to record companies, by the way. Says he doesn't want all that. That's not why he did the song. That's not why he does the music. He doesn't want to be playing in arenas. He doesn't want tour buses. He doesn't want their money. I find that, that's amazing.
Compared to our generation, what, you want to sign me? Oh, yay.
I was gonna say I played in a band when I was younger, and I'm just
me too.
Man, it's like, what, millions of dollars, tour arenas? Okay, I'm in. But it's funny because we know how bad the music industry treats bands, and yet we would still dive in and do it. And he's got the willpower to say no.
Right. And that's actually one of the other things about it. I was just talking to my son about this because he's becoming a musician now. He's a guitar player. It's just like the world they live in now, because we were talking about how like the media would control, what politicians you see. They totally had a stranglehold on what music you would hear, big time, and that was something I had to share with people because they were not aware of it. Was that, like, for example, somebody actually recently came out about this and revealed that they paid Damn Yankees, which was an 80s rock band, $1 million to not make any more music because they wanted to push the grunge movement. And so people thought that the grunge movement
reason.
Well, right. I'm just saying that the point is that they wanted to end 80s rock.
I wanted to pay the Damn Yankees to not make any more music too.
Well, right. But they were trying, but the ones that they didn't pay, they just simply hung the phone up on and then never talked to again. And that included people like Lita Ford, or bands that used to be able to fill their, entire stadiums all by themselves, were basically told you're either going to play grunge or you're going to cease to exist. And so all of these rock stars would then go, well, screw you then, I'll just go find another company. And then come to find out all of the record companies had decided that rock and roll as it was before that was going to cease to exist, and that everybody would be listening to grunge.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the last big pushes of this, but people don't realize that the push to grunge was not organic. It wasn't just something that just happened on its own, that there was a huge effort on the part of the record companies to silence everything that had happened before that. And we can get into that some other time, but honestly, I think what my theory as somebody who is a songwriter is that um, grunge is a very simple form of music to write, at least the commercial version they were using. And I think they like it better when a musician has no bargaining power. It's the same thing with rap. It's the reason that Dr. Dre got into producing his own rap was because they used to have rap artists by the balls. Basically, you'd get to make one good rap song, they would sign you for that song, and then you would disappear, which meant that you didn't come back to the table to bargain for more money next time, you know.
Right.
But
And Johnny Walker, I love Ted Nugent, but I just was not a fan of the damn Yankees. I don't know why, but something about them was not appealing to me compared to Ted on his own, for sure.
it wasn't my favorite band, but I didn't hate them. They had powerful voices, and then you got Ted Nugent. But still, it
Yeah.
wasn't about like whether you like the damn Yankees. Is that they were so desperate to get them to stop, and the reason that they had to pay them instead of just ghosting them was that it had Ted Nugent, and then like I think one of the guitar players from Night Ranger. I mean, it was a super group by that definition, and they needed to just pay them to go away. You know, but they like it better when they have total control over you. That's how the record companies have always been.
And you know, the internet allows for, just as it used to allow for an independent media, independent musicians, and there's plenty of success stories out there. You know, Tom McDonald being one of the most recent, obviously.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, I mean what he's doing, and he's making it a point to say that he's not, you know, he's completely independent. He's shown a couple of the behind the scenes of his videos and how, you know, rather simplistic it was to make it, how on the cheap he went and made them. And I mean, that's impressive. It takes a lot of drive, and you gotta be able to write a catchy tune that people want to listen to. There, you know, you just don't become a success just because you want to be. You have to have something that people want to listen to. But again, have that willpower to say, you know, I am not joining you, the record studios. I'm going to continue to do this on my own and grow that way. A lot of respect for that. I got to tell you,
Well, and the fact that it's even possible. Because like a guy like that, when you and I were making music, nobody would even know who he was. Maybe in his neighborhood, that'd have been it. That song would have never been heard by another soul, right? You know, and that it's interesting that you know things have changed so much since then. But in any case, I gotta go. I'm hungry. I'm gonna go eat. It was good talking to you again, Brian. Good talking to everybody else. You know, thanks for tuning in today.
Just kicking us off the show just because of your little belly aching going on.
That's correct. Yeah, that's all it is, man. You know, I've heard that food does help one's body function better. I could be wrong though. That could just be mainstream media propaganda. But
it's a myth.
You know, Winning Reality and Johnny Walker Dread, make sure that you hook up with it's Hoot on Discord. You know, I'd like you guys to help him just by cross promoting him to your audiences, you know, and vice versa, because I think you guys will really like his stuff. And he's supposed to be making some of his own content. Hint, hint, hint.
I'm getting there. You know, I got 5 kids and a busy life. So, you know, it's not like I'm 18 in my mom's basement anymore.
You know, and that's another thing, actually. We got to review that Anarchist HBO show before it gets too old and nobody cares.
Yeah. Johnny Walker, he's talking about me, Liberty Unleashed. We did the gun control show together. That was our 2nd episode, I think, Neil.
Yeah. That's the guy I'm talking to here, Johnny. You were there for most of it. Yeah. So, but anyway,
and I'm Hoot on Discord over on the V Radio Discord. HOOT. So
make sure you check out the V Radio Discord. There are people of very diverse viewpoints there. Just be aware of the fact that the only main rule is no personal attack, but you're allowed to, you know, say whatever the hell you want. Other than that, most of the time. I think the only person I ever banned for their ideology literally said that they should line up migrant kids and execute them as foreign invaders. Like, yeah, you're gone. Bye. Other than that, and
you're
it's not
no
just
bad than the people we talked about all episode, Neil.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, part of it is also though they'll take your Discord chat down if they see shit like that. That's part of the problem. But in addition to that, I'm like, nah, I think we're not going to talk about that. But you know, but I've talked to genuine racists. I've talked to genuine theocrats. I've talked to genuine Antifa members. You know, like all kinds of weird people show up in the Discord chat. It's just a question of like, can you share your controversial views without attacking people? We can get into that another time as to why I feel that's important. But you should check out the Discord. You can also check me out on my various channels: Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, etc. And I do advise that you do, because Neo Unrealist was removed from YouTube entirely and is stuck over on Rumble. And that really kind of woke me up, because his stuff is not that different than mine, guys, and they just outright deleted him. So it's just a matter of time, I think, especially depending on how things move. When where the wind goes. I'm not going to stop doing this, because the other thing that I've kind of had to point out to people before is like, even if your video is only getting like 300 views, if you stuck 300 people in a room, it's like an auditorium. Like, is it 100,000 people? No, it's not. But to me, that's still worth it. And I'll still do it. But share the videos. Get them out there, because that's really what motivates me in the end. I make a little money doing this, and I could certainly use a little more financial help right now, just because there's a problem going on at home. But like, that's not what motivates me, and I'd still do this. I certainly have never made enough money to justify it, at least not recently. Many years ago, I used to get like $1,000 a month in donations, but that was like way long ago. And then I stopped doing it for a long time to focus on with my kids. But if you do want to support the show, you can do it at Subscribestar, Patreon, or PayPal. My super chats are enabled. We need to get Hoot's super chats enabled too. And hopefully get that done. And thanks again. Did you have any parting thoughts, Brian?
As always, make sure that you get over there and subscribe to my channel. I am on Rumble as Liberty Unleashed as well. So if you do have a Rumble account, hit me up over there. And of course, I appreciate everybody for listening. I love the chat. I love the interaction. It's one thing I look forward to this show every Sunday, is all the listeners and the interaction that goes on in the chat. There's some good, insightful conversation. There's some funny conversation. And, of course, everything in between that happens over there. And, doing this with you for, I guess, we're at probably 8 or 9 episodes now. I'm starting to become familiar with people, some of the regulars over there. And I definitely enjoy hanging out with them and them being part of the show. So that's the fun part for me. So thank you guys. I don't get the amount of listens on my channel that Neil gets, but it's still worth it to me, because again, the hangout here is fun. There's a lot of like-minded people. And again, I just appreciate the support and everybody tuning in when Neil and I go on and try to give our opinion on things. We know it can be pretty hard to listen to sometimes.
So,
but anyway, and again, happy birthday to Ron Paul, the guy who started it all for me when it comes to politics and doing stuff like this.
Yeah, that's why I played that Amy Allen video. So speaking of people that I support, though, I'm going to drop this link right now in the chat, guys. Strategic Eyes is live right now. I don't think I have that thing enabled that would allow me just to send you over there. So let me just put the link over there. And if you guys could head over there and say, hey, V Radio sent me, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and pin it, but I just dropped the link in my chat right now. So if you guys could go check him out again. He's probably one of my favorite YouTubers. You guys should go listen to him. I always listen to all of his stuff, and he also cross promotes V Radio. So, jump on over to the Strategic Eyes channel and tell him V Radio sent you. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 6.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Take care.